All right, folks, well, welcome back. Today, we're actually doing real work. We are up at McVay Automotive. We're visiting Uncle Bob, and we brought our Pontiac heads. Right yonder are my 1968 62 casting Pontiac heads. These are big valve, small chamber, screw-in stud heads. In the previous video, which hopefully you've already watched, we cleaned these things up, did all the disassembly, cleaned them up in the cabinet, and they are about as clean as you're gonna get a set of heads from 1968. Today, we're up here and we're gonna see exactly what we've got. Now we know one of these heads has been worked slightly. One of them seems to be virgin. Under the valve there, you can see where they've been touched up a bit to be able to improve airflow. Now this touch-up was done back in the 70s because these heads have been sitting for like 4 decades. This head is essentially, as far as I can tell, all factory original, hasn't been really messed with at all. They are not a matched set of heads, but they are both 1968 heads. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna at least get these things mocked up, and we're gonna check the CC of the chamber that's on these heads. I do have a flow bench tester for right there, for Bob's flow bench, and we're going to eventually test these heads as they sit before we go through porting to see exactly what they make as they are now, and then we're going to hand port these things to increase our airflow to begin with. But what we need is that we need a CC number from these heads so we can start figuring out pistons, camshaft, head gaskets, that kind of stuff, and know exactly where we're starting from. The block, if you haven't seen this, is a 1971 350 block. It has scallops on both the intake and exhaust sides, and it is a virgin block. So we've got a lot of meat that we can work with on that side of things, but we want to be able to make sure that these big valve heads are going to breathe as much as they possibly can, and we also want to make sure we get our compression right. So today, that's what we're doing. And Bob's over here working hard.
Hey!
That's Bob working hard.
Hey!
Yeah, so I got to get these things all mocked up sitting here on the shelf, and then we'll go through the process of CCing a set of heads and we'll know what we got. So if you're interested, follow along. I'm actually working today. I will mention as well that I did clean up some valves. These are the original valves that were in the motor in the vapor honing cabinet, so that I can put the valves back in this thing, because in order to test the chamber size, you actually have to have your valves in it, as well as spark plug. Right, Bob?
That's right.
Yeah. Give us the wisdom. Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Man of many words. So, for those of you who've never done this before, exhaust valve, intake valve, spark plug sits this way in here, and then you have a little plate, like here, that will sit over this, and then you basically just fill this with fluid, and however many cc's of fluid you use to fill up that chamber, that's how big the chamber is. Science. Pay attention in school, kids. Go. See a spark plug in there. A little bit of personal lubrication on the valve stem here. There we go. Valves are in. Spark plugs in, so that's going to be our total chamber size. But what we're going to do is we want to level this head out so that this is nice and level. A little personal lubricant. I'm going to walk it right in front of my camera, Bob. people at home can't see you doing what you're doing.
You can tell that I don't pay any attention to camera.
I don't either.
What's the noise going on? What's the lighting look like? Am I wearing the right shirt?
I hear more complaints about my radio blasting.
Yeah. Am I going to get copyright strikes against it because he's got copyrighted music going? All right. So
No, if you want to be the high side, it needs to be up here. You don't have enough grease on there.
all right, more lube.
So then, once you get that set, then I might come and bring this in here and practice how it's going to sit in there before I get that thing full.
Yeah. And you fill this with
Over, you're buying it.
you fill this with windshield washer fluid.
Yeah, I'm going to throw it behind you.
He puts the super expensive piece of glass right next to where I'm messing. I tell you. All right, so there we are. See, we've got our petroleum jelly personal lubrication there, and that will seal this piece of plexi. And then you can see that this has got a funnel cut into it. So the idea here is what he was saying is set this piece down so that it seals, and then we can fill that chamber with fluid and keep this piece all the way up here on the top. That way the air bubble comes up here. And we do have this slightly set up so that this side is higher than this side is, to be able to make the air bubble travel that way. That makes sense. All right, so the plate is stuck down. I'm all greased pig. All right, well, we're going back to science class now. Understand how this works? So you can see there's graduations on here as far as how many cc's are in this thing. Not sure if you can read that or not. I don't know if I've got a macro that'll see that or not. Anyway, there's graduation on here to show you exactly how much fluid is in this thing. So we'll fill this guy up here on the top, and then we'll lead that guy down into that chamber, and we'll see exactly what that cc is. Now, you're going to do this for each head, especially in my case where these are mismatched heads, so I don't know if one of them has been cut or not. You could do this for every single cylinder if you really wanted to. I'm not going to be that particular about it, so I'm only going to do one cylinder per head. But part of the process also is going to be you're going to make sure these heads have been cut and skimmed so that the mating surface is completely and totally flat. And that's going to be a process that's going to be done after this. After we know how big these chambers are, we'll then check the trueness of that deck to make sure that this is fine, which will cut off a little bit of that depth, which will decrease our chamber volume, which will increase our compression just slightly. Hopefully they don't need a lot of cutting because they're already a small chamber head. The one that's already been worked, I don't know, it depends. It really comes down to a question about how many times have these things been overheated in their lifetime, and just generally speaking, the original castings were not usually completely true. So you're going to cut a couple thousandths off of it, but you want to try to cut as little as possible off of them to get them as true as possible. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so let's put some fluid in our graduated cylinder here, and then we'll test what the CC of these chambers are.
So the other thing is, I'm just telling you, as long as it's above that.
Yeah.
But I would take and bring it over here.
Fill it on the ground.
And go on the ground, so then you're not.
I'm also vertically challenged, so. Am I in frame?
Hey, let's turn this off.
Yeah, probably close that valve.
Maybe you did. Try it again. So 0 starts up here.
I'm gonna guess These things are in the 70 cc range.
Let's put a 0. I mean, that makes the video look good because it says 70.
All right. Are we rolling? We're rolling. All right. So there we go. Got our graduated cylinder from science class. I overfilled this about, I don't know, 3 cc's. Nice thing is you can just bleed it out the bottom. Can you see that? What you doing over here, Miss Bob?
Top secret.
Top secret?
Top secret. We'll share it, but we can't tell anybody.
Okay, fair enough.
Trying to fix some loose holes.
If only it were that easy all the time. Open up our valve here. Move this just a little bit. Just a skosh. Okay, you can see it's starting to fill the cylinder up. And we're coming down here. That's how it works. Science. Except for when it's leaking out the other intake port. Not gonna work. False start. Alright, let's try that again. Get these valves to seal up a little bit better. Also, let's be honest, this probably needs a valve job, so whether or not they were sealing properly anyway is definitely a part of the question. Let's try this again. Okay. Okay, try this again. Huh? Well, we're going to try again. We're trying again. Oh, I think we're working. Don't see any extra fluid coming out the bottom. Looks like we're filling up. That is 42 cc's. I'm gonna guess these things should be in the mid 60s. Probably. We're not losing fluid out. I don't think. Alright, we are at 62, 64. Let's shut this thing off. We are still not full. Interesting. Let's keep on going. Oh, nope. We're losing it out the bottom. Dang it. Okay, round 3, we're using wheel bearing grease. This personal lubricant's not working out. Give me a second. I gotta clean up after myself. Peeing all over the place. We're gonna use some driven engine assembly grease and just paint that on the back side of the valve to hopefully get that thing to stick and seal up so we don't keep on losing our fluid out. Third time's the charm. If I don't get this right, you're doing it next. Okay, it's all sealed. Alright, we're getting into the 50s. It's 62. Okay, so that is completely filled. And according to the graduated cylinder, we're at 77 cc's. I'm gonna guess we lost at least a little bit when it overfilled and came up out of the top. So we're probably at 72 cc's, I would say, on this head. Okay. Well, that gives us one data point. So, repeat the process on the other head. I don't need to do the other cylinders, like I said. You could if you really, really wanted to, but we'll make sure the cylinders are trued, and then they should be within reason. And this is not something where we're going to be, you know, measuring this thing within microns. We want as much power as possible, but 1 or 2 cc's this way or that way, we're not going to be tuning it within that kind of a crazy window. So that gives us that one. So we'll say 72 cc's on this head. Let's get the other one mocked up and test it. Got our spark plug in this side. Technically speaking, yes, I could just unthread the one out of the other side, but I have two, I might as well use two. And you do want to use the proper spark plug. You do want to have the spark plug actually run in the proper amount of way, because otherwise you're going to add some extra displacement there that you don't want to add. So, let's do it all over again. Add some lube. Oh, Uncle Bob's some personal lubrication here. Put that on the shopping list that I owe him. And those of you who are following along at home, what are a set of 1968, 1969, number 62 Pontiac casting heads supposed to be? Does my number make sense? Or am I completely and totally out in the woods? I am going to load this a little bit differently than I did the other one, based on where we saw the air bubble last time. Alright, so let's reload our graduated cylinder. Check this head, see if they're even, which they doubtfully are. Whoop, we're losing it out the top. I wonder if I've got some of the lubricant underneath my water hole there. Alright. Put our plate back on. I did indeed have some fluid or some gasoline on the bottom of that, so my bad. Get that thing to seal back down there. And we got 1 milliliter already in there, so we're going to start from there. There we go. So the important part here is going to be understanding which one is where and how much we need to take off to be able to make these heads match. This is not a numbers matching project. This is not a numbers matching engine. Don't care. I want a good combination of parts that's going to work well and work consistently. We're trying to build this car to be a bracket racer that will survive quite a long time, that could maybe even do some drag and drive events. So the idea here is, yes, we want to make as much power as possible. We want to make it as reliably as possible. We want to go out and make pass after pass after pass after pass and be able to get back in it and drive it without having to worry about the damn thing blowing itself up or to be, tuned within an inch of its life. In order to do that, we've got to make sure we've got pretty precision measurements. So, is this something that most people do? Yeah, maybe, maybe not. Is it something I'm going to absolutely spend the time to do? You bet your butt. We'll see where she ends up. What do you think? Alright, we are at 43 cc's right now. I'm still climbing. Uh, 67. We got just a tiny little bubble left right there. That's it, boys. That's it. So that one is at basically, call it 68, 69, somewhere in that range. So head number 1, 72. This one's at 68, which means in order to get the two actually back to where they need to be, or at least even, we're going to have to cut 4 thousandths at least off of that head. Now the question is going to be, how true is this head? And the only way we're going to do that is going to be the next step of this process is checking the head itself to make sure that everything is true and how much we got to take off of there. And then we got to match that head to that one. Also, we need to be able to figure out, we need to know what the final CC of this is in order to narrow down exactly what our compression is going to be. We are going to run this as a pump gas motor. So that's going to limit what we can run as far as absolute compression on this motor. We've got to be careful. Back in the olden days, back when this thing was a thing, you could get 100 octane pump gas. That's not a thing anymore. 91 or 93 is the best you're going to get. I don't want to get involved in the E85 world side of things. Anybody who says they could drive cross country or a long distance trip on E85 is selling you something. If you get out of the Midwest, E85 stations are incredibly hard to find. The percentage on E85 varies all over the place. So unless you happen to have a truck and a trailer that you're following behind, or a whole bunch of gas cans in the back with your E85 in it, not a great idea. If I'm going to be doing a drag and drive event with this thing, not a great idea. So we got to be pretty particular here. We want to probably keep this thing in like the 8.5 to 1, maybe a little above that. At the end of the day, we're going to be limited on what we can do, but it's part of the fun of making motors, right? What can you do with what you got? So we'll call this one 68 and that one 72.
I wondered if I was going to turn them rusty.
Damn it. Probably. All that time and energy I spent making these things perfect, you're just going to go ahead and try to rust my stuff.
I'd probably bet by the time a set of heads comes in and get cleaned up, and all through all the processes, I bet I wash them 5 times.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
That probably never gets charged out.
Talk to your billing department.
I got a new one of those. We're checking for cracks, and when there's one cracked, it looks like this. See, it shows up. This one here is cracked in every hole. Wow. Injector hole.
See that? There we go. All right. Get your digital camera super close to a really strong magnet.
Well, that may not be a good idea. Yeah, that may not be a good idea. So you're looking for something cracked down in these exhaust seats, it'd be pretty common. It looks good. We'll push this one right.
Okay. Now, realistically speaking, if it is cracked, that's pretty much the end of that head.
Yeah, I don't fix cracks.
So.
Yeah. I mean, in the old days, they used to, but today with time and labor and, and the...
You're expensive.
Yeah. Not me.
Yeah. So, this is that moment where you're like, okay, we may be lucky, we may not be, but we're going to know right now. If it passes this, we're going to be using these heads, which, fingers crossed, it's going to pass. What is this magic dust?
Magnetic powder.
Goodson magnetic powder.
Looks good. Oh man, we got a bolt broken off.
We got one broken bolt.
You know, the cleaning department's always supposed to take him out.
We'll work on that. We'll work on that.
You tell Rich, it ain't necessarily always a machine shop that needs to do that.
Right.
It's the cleaning department.
I get it. I get it. So what do we think?
Let's use them.
Got it? So next step in the process is what?
Well, we need some valves, seats.
Now one of these have already been cut for my brain is just shut off.
Guides.
Yeah, guides obviously going to need to be done. Because this one already had, you can see it's already been cut. It already had shims in it. So at this point in time, do we start talking factory valves or just good replacement valves, stainless steel?
Good replacement valves.
Camshaft, springs.
Yeah, we need to talk to a cam company.
Okay. Figure out how much lift we can get out of this thing.
Yeah.
So we'll end this thing on that note. Heads are good. 72 cc's, 68 cc's. That's fine. No cracks, no problems there. We've got a good set of heads that we can work from. So I will start having the conversations about the other next steps that we need to do. I've also got to finish getting the block all done and getting it cleaned up, getting it back up here to Bob so that we can go through it, make sure the block is good to go. The nice thing is blocks for Pontiacs are pretty easy to find. So for some reason, if that 1971 350 block is hurt, which I don't think it will be, it's replaceable. It's not a problem. But at least we've got a good set of heads that we can start working from. We can start working out the valve train and get that side of things figured out, camshaft selection, all that. But at least we've got a place to start from. So there you go. Thanks for coming along on my little adventure here. This is Automotive Adventures with Austin, my own little personal corner of the YouTubes. And we are building ourselves, hopefully, a 12-second flat 1968 Pontiac Le Mans, powered by that Pontiac 350 motor that we're now technically in the process of building. But we made it past the first hurdle, which means we've got a good set of heads so we can move forward. So I'll see you in the next one, guys. Probably back at the shop getting the block prepped and cleaned up to bring up here. See you in the next one. Take care.